Hi there. Today this is going to be a very short video on landing a rover on the moon and the lack of rovers on the moon since 1972 all the way to 2018. Now let me explain this. The question I've always had is all these moon missions that took place, all the Apollo landing missions, we know that before those missions that rovers, even just single rovers landing and not even moving, just taking pictures, landed on the moon by the United States and the USSR. So they all have rovers still sitting there from those long ago missions. So the question asked is, after the Apollo missions, after 1972, what is the reason that no rover, autonomous rover, has ever landed on any of those Apollo sites and has gone to those Apollo sites to actually take footage of what was left behind? Now, people say, well, why would you need to do that? Well, it's 2018. You really need to find out if the USSR stole any of your equipment because you left it there unprotected, knowing that the USSR also had rovers landing on the moon, and vice versa. The United States could land a rover near one of the landing sites of the USSR rovers and steal their rovers. So at any time, anybody could steal anybody's equipment because nobody left any cameras there to check it around. Nobody knows what's going on up there. So the question is what is the problem of landing a rover on the Apollo 16 landing site, for example, and showing us the limb and the moon buggy left behind? What is the problem with all these decades that they can't do this? They've shown us so many rovers landing on Mars, so much evidence of Mars, the Mars landscape, the Mars ground, but yet NASA still cannot land one rover on any of the Apollo landing sites. You got Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17. There is no rover that has ever been landed on any of those sites and has gone up to the limb or any equipment left behind there. So let's go take a little trip to the moon here. Now, in one part of the moon, you have the Russian or the former USSR rovers still sitting there. And on one side of the moon, you have the American rovers and you have the American landing sites for Apollo. So it's not that NASA can't land a rover on those sites, because they have shown us that they can go to Mars and land a rover. And it's not the first time they've gone there. So let's ask again, what is the reason that NASA refuses to land rovers on the moon on their former Apollo landing sites? There is absolutely zero technological reasons why NASA can't do that. Now, we've seen LRO images of the top from many, many miles away of the landing sites. The question becomes is, if you spent almost $270 million to send the LRO there, and you don't put a rover and land it, you're being played, people. Well, let's take a picture from about 20 miles out. But landing a rover is too hard. I mean, it's just impossible. Much easier on Mars. It's with that distance, it's much easier than the moon's distance. So the question becomes again, pounded into your heads. No one has ever seen any rover footage of the equipment left behind on any of the Apollo landing sites. From 1972 to 2018, there are no rovers. There is no footage of anything that landed on the moon. Now, you say, that's impossible. We have the LRO images proving that, you can see the tracks, for God's sake. I can also see BS right in front of me. Show me footage of a rover going up to the LEM and the moon buggy on Apollo 16. If NASA does not have any rovers on the moon to check on their former landing sites in case if anybody, Russians obviously, would be going up to them and stealing their technology, why would NASA do that? NASA knows that there's Russian rovers on one side of the moon. They know fully well that Russia can land a rover there anytime. It's 2018. Neither Russia, neither the Americans have landed any rovers on their former landing sites. You're all being played with a space hoax, and it's time you guys wake up, because you can present all the evidence you want. If you can't show ground evidence of what you left behind, and you're showing us evidence from many, many miles away, saying, "Oh, look, we can't zoom in too far." No, land a rover there like you did in the past. The Americans and the Russians landed rovers on both sides of the moon. They're still there. So it's not like it's a technological issue of landing rovers on the moon. It was done before. So all the way up to 1980, there's numerous rovers from Russia sitting there. There's numerous rovers from the Americans sitting there. And there's many Apollo landing sites still there with all the equipment left behind. So again, it's 2018. Let's start sending rovers to the moon, and let's start actually seeing what was actually left there. Besides, think about this. Rovers on the moon, a new technological achievement for mankind, and it would breed a new generation of scientists, of astronomers, who can actually see the moon in real time, have cameras up there looking at the Earth so you can see the Earth in real time, 24 hours a day, so we can see finally what the Earth looks like spinning from space. All these space exploration decades, and we still don't have a shot from the moon's surface showing us where we live, spinning 24 hours a day. So again, I ask, who has any rover footage from any of the Apollo landing sites from 1972 to 2018? Decade after decade after decade, no rovers have ever landed on any of the Apollo landing sites and took footage of what was left behind. You're being played, people. Be careful.